There's been a lot going on around here these past few weeks. We've been tearing things down, going up ladders, dismantling furniture, and moving very heavy objects around. There's a simple explanation for this, even if the work involved wasn't quite so easy. With the coldest months fast approaching, our thoughts turned again to how we keep ourselves warm and comfortable in the house. As much as we love our living area, the tall ceilings and open spaces make heating the rooms a little tricky. We've tried infrared heaters, which work by heating you directly and not the air in the room, so when you move around, you're in the cold. We've also had the old wood burner in the conservatory, and that was great until the end of last winter when it started blowing smoke into the room, and so we'd have to open windows, and that meant getting cold again. We've given it some thought and decided that we should try air conditioning so that we can benefit from it in the winter and in the summer for cooling. So that should be fairly straightforward, shouldn't it? Well, not quite, because it means taking on some work that we've been dreading ever since moving into this house. First, we've got to do some preparations, such as finding out the heating potential required, finding a space for the external units, and how we're going to route the piping system, and preparing the internal walls where the units are going to be placed. And it's this last element that we've been dreading. How on earth do we tackle those sand-textured walls? The upper two floors of the house were remodelled about 35 years ago, and that's when they covered all the walls, including the hallway, with textured paint. It may have been fashionable then, but it's really difficult to clean or paint. And we can't count the number of times we've scraped the back of our hands moving furniture around. That's painful. We've looked at plastering, but we discovered that the texture on our walls is greater than the recommended thickness of finishing plaster. It would also be a major job because we don't just want to do the walls where the units are going, we'd quite like to finish the room as well. So we'll have to scrape the walls instead. We've tried this in some other areas previously, and I can tell you it's a really difficult, horrible job. So it's time to get started. We'll be getting 2 units, one for the living room and one for the bedroom. The first wall we started scraping was the one in the living room. Because time was limited, we needed to prioritise the walls where the units were going to be installed, and come back later to finish the other walls. We cleaned the area before protecting the edges with masking tape, and then it was straight on to painting. Next it was the bedroom. We did think about exposing the stonework, but that would take a lot more time. We can't actually do it before the air conditioners arrive. But we were only thinking of perhaps here, under this window, and perhaps under that window, and possibly the window over here. It's too much to do now because we'd have to get a jackhammer or something. But also, I'm not bothered about exposing any more stone in this room anyway, because we've got lots of stone exposed in other rooms, and if you remember, all the downstairs area has been exposed and pointed, so that is looking nice. So I don't really think I need any more exposed stone at this point in time, but you never know, maybe in the future. The day before the installation of the internal unit, we managed to get the first coats of paint on. The following morning, whilst the engineers were connecting the external units, Amilcar began work on taking down some ceiling boards to provide a route for the pipes. And just when we thought everything was under control, something else demanded our attention. You wouldn't believe it to look at him, but Bobo's become quite a bit of an escape artist. And this is where he escapes from. So Amilcar's decided it's about time we needed to put up a little bit more fencing. He seems to have found a way to have escaped. I think there's two places at the moment. This one here, and there's another one over the far side near the Lamero. So we're just setting about removing some of the weeds and getting some fencing in there, and hopefully we'll have at least solved this one. And there he is, trying to figure out another escape route. It's a temporary fix. It'll do for now. The units were installed. In total it took 3 days. 2 days with 2 engineers and 1 day with 3 engineers. We'll come back to the heating shortly. We couldn't leave the bedroom unfinished, and as much as we disliked scraping, we carried on. You can just about see that this area here has had the first scraping, and it's much better, even though I'd probably need a second scrape compared to here, which is really textured and rough. But even just with a scrape, it improves an awful lot. Needs a better blade. Look, this one hasn't got much.
It's got plenty to go.
It's awkward. I'm just going to do a second coat with this new scraper because this one seems to be working better than the other two, so it'll make it just that tiny bit flatter. We've just finished dismantling the large wardrobe, and now it's time to dust and clean off and place it in a different room. Earlier in the year, Diogo helped Amilcar with some fencing at the edge of the property. And it was fairly secure until recently. One of Bobo's escape routes was where wild boar had found a weak point, and they were making regular treks into our land at night. It's this spot where the fencing ends and meets higher ground. We bought sturdy wooden stakes and hammered them in to the fairly soft ground. We didn't need the fencing to look pretty.
So we've left with a lot of fencing from the previous farmer. We've taken it all from wherever he had them. There was quite a lot of fencing there. It's an old fence and we really want to get rid of it because it's in the way and difficult to maintain. The grasses down around it.
So we've reached the end of that last bit of fencing that we brought over. Is this the last post that you're going to nail in?
It is the last post we're going to nail in today as the sun is setting, and then tomorrow or next week we'll continue to improve the fencing.
No, 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 I don't think so. No, 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 it's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen.
I think we're going to paint it all white to begin with, keep it nice and fresh, and then later we can decide if we want a feature wall a different colour. We could have sited the external units on the house walls. It would have been an easier installation, but it would have spoilt the facade. Here was a less exposed site, but we had to remove the old water tank first.
The pipes comes from the outside into the laundry. They run across this way. They were rooted on the ceiling. To do that, we had to cut the plasterboard off. There's 4 pipes altogether, and they run through the main house from this point in here. And they come through here and continue along the edge until 2 pipes continue in this direction and 2 pipes goes in that direction. In addition to the pipes carrying the gas to feed the air conditioning, they also have an electrical wire that's connecting from the main unit outside directly on the units inside. This one feeds the living room units, and this one goes into our bedroom. There will be more air conditioning as we've got extra money that we'll be installing in other rooms. After installing routing all the pipes, that's the time then we will be covering this room, putting a ceiling in it. And where I removed the ceiling boards, these pipes now feeds in the living room.
We needed to finish off the fencing, so it was back outside to continue the good work. These boulders have fallen because of soil erosion, and they're quite heavy and large, so it's not easy for us to put them back in place. But the wall actually belongs to the neighbours. A few months ago she did actually contact us and say she's going to arrange to get some people in to fix it. In the meantime, Milk has diverted the water flow that comes from one of the first water mines, the one with the tank and the tap. It just flows along here, so Milk has spent some time diverting it so that it comes around these boulders here, and that's just a temporary measure.
We're going to fix this area that you've seen, and there's another area just a few meters down there that the wall has collapsed a little bit, and that was a passage for the wall board and an exit for bulb.
That's enough for the day. It's time to go back and warm up at home.